Whew. Let's cook some shit.
I've been putting work in, I put in that work. I got some new work in, can put you to work.
So one thing we gotta make sure we do, we're gonna be cooking multiple things. Prepare yourself, don't just start turning everything on once. Break it down, use your logic, your common sense. So I'm gonna be cooking a steak, I'm gonna be cooking eggs, I'm gonna be cooking grits. What we know is eggs cook really fast. We don't have to worry about the eggs right now, so that leaves us with two other things, grits and a steak. The grits will take about 5 to 8 minutes max, so we don't have to worry about that yet. All we're gonna focus on from the start is the steak, because one thing you wanna do with steak is let it relax and chill once it is done, and that'll give us time to work on these other things. So right now, we'll go ahead and get the stove turned on. I'm gonna be using cast iron. Cast iron is great for steaks because you can get it really hot and it won't burn. That's to a pot or skillet like this, stainless steel or whatever. You get it too hot, it'll start smoking and it'll burn. Cast iron won't do that. That's the benefit of cast iron. But we'll start that. We won't just crank that heat up. We'll put it on a medium-high heat. We'll let it sit. We'll let it get nice and hot. And we'll know because it'll get a little bit of smoking point on the pot. It'll start to smoke a little bit, and that's when we'll know it's ready. Medium-high. We'll let that bad boy heat up. Probably give it about 2 minutes or so, and it'll get nice and hot. So now that my cast iron's been heating up, I can see just a little bit of a smoking point, and I know it's hot enough to where I want it. So I'll go ahead and take a tablespoon, top full really, of vegetable oil, and I'll put that down in there. Just take a measuring spoon, and you can do a tablespoon, or you can just use the top. That's pretty much what I did. Maybe just a dab bit more, and there we go. And we'll let that get hot, nice and hot. Stir it around and get it hot real quick, and we'll go ahead and drop our steak. So I have my steak here, and we can see this steak is about 1 inch, maybe a little bit more, plus 1/4 thick. So I'm gonna give this steak probably about 8 to 9 minutes of cook time. So I'll go ahead and drop it in right here. And it's nice and hot, so it's gonna get a nice good sear. So we'll let that go. And what you want to do is, I'm to a point in my cooking level where I can mentally cook a steak, but if you're not, when you're learning, use your timer. Whether you have an egg timer, whether you use your phone, use your timers on these things. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 3 minutes before I flip the steak at all. So we got that going, and we'll let this cook with a nice sear for 3 minutes. And then we'll flip it, and I'll probably do the other side for 3 minutes, and then we'll just keep going until we get up to about 8 minutes, and it should be nice. And I like to flip it because I don't want it to burn, and I want it to evenly cook. All right, so the timer's going off. We're at 3 minutes. We'll go ahead and flip this steak. Got a nice little sear on there. And we'll do the same thing. We'll set our timer again, do another 3 minutes. So now we've done 3 minutes on each side. I'll continue flipping it and start doing it at 1 minute per side, just because it needs to cook a little longer, but we don't want to keep it on one side so it burns. So I'll flip it back. And I'll let this side go for another minute. And that'll put us at a total for 7 minutes. And then from there, we'll have about 2 more minutes of cook before it gets to like a nice medium rare, medium where I like to get it, medium rare. So now we're in the last 2 minutes of this cook, giving us a total of 9 minutes. So I'll continue to do a minute per side, but what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get a nice scoop of butter, and this is when I'm gonna throw my garlic in there that I chopped up, and I'll continually baste the steak with the garlic and butter. And I'll say about, for this size steak, it's about 2 tablespoons or so of butter. It's gonna give it a lot of flavor with that butter and that garlic. And we'll grab us a spoon so we can baste it. So the butter is nice and melted. And I'll grab my garlic, and I'll throw my garlic in here. We'll do, take a spoon. It'll just make sure you, ooh, the aromas are so good, you can really smell it. You get this butter that you put in there and this garlic, and you keep tossing it over and getting it all nice and covered. And so we'll do one more flip, give it one more minute, and it'll be right where we want it. All right, so time's up. We'll get the steak on out of here. Place it to the side, and we'll go ahead and let it sit. You want to always let your meat sit, let your steak sit for at least about 5 minutes. We got a few other things we got to cook that might take us about 10 minutes, but that's fine. We'll just let it sit and it'll be perfect by the time we're ready for it. And one reason you want to let it sit is because it'll continue to cook. So if I start cutting it right now, it would seem like it wasn't done. It might be real bloody, but as you let it sit, the temperatures will continue to rise for a bit, then they'll even out. And with that evening out, it'll also relax the meat and it'll make it so that it's nice and tender and it won't be as tough. Because when the heat's in there and it's really hot, it's contracting, and as you let it relax and finish the cooking and rising in temperature and cool down, that meat will relax, and that'll give you nice, tender, and juicy as opposed to cutting it right now. It'll probably seem really tough. So that's why it's always important not to be in a rush, not to be in a hurry to eat, not to worry about letting it sit, because it needs to sit. That's part of the process. So in that same pan that we just finished, we got that little garlic settling in there and that butter and that oil. I'm gonna take those onions and those peppers, let those bad boys cook up in there, give it some nice flavor. And with that, we know we'll have to cook the grits. I got a cup of water in here. I'm gonna add about a 1/4 cup of grits. I got a little salt in the water, and I'm gonna start to let that boil. Now we can start with the multitasking and cooking several things because we got that to the side. So I'll put that water on high, bring it to a boil. And once it starts to boil, we'll add our grits, and they'll need to cook for about 5 minutes. All right, we've got our peppers and our onions nice and cooked up. We don't want to overcook them. Got them at a nice consistency. See how those are looking right there. You gotta make sure you're stirring those grits up when you're cooking them, when you're first getting them in there. You don't want them to lump up and have clumps. But we got it in there, we got it going. So we'll turn the heat down. So we know the grits need to go for about 3.5 more minutes. Eggs fairly fast, but we're talking about temperature control. So I just want to go over I see a lot of people when they start cooking eggs, they turn the stove up, bam, full blast. Take your pan, put it on there, turn your stove on. You don't even need medium. I go with like a little lower than medium, and you don't have to put them in there right away. Let it take a little time, like a minute, maybe 2 minutes, for the pan to get nice and hot to the temperature it needs to be in. Then put your eggs in, and you can slowly cook your eggs. You don't have to race and have burnt eggs or overcooked eggs. Temperature control. Don't just turn it up high. I got it a little bit less than medium. We're gonna take our pan. I like to rinse it with a little bit of water, and I sit it down. And once that water, you can see a little bit of water in here. Once that water starts to evaporate, it's nice and warm enough, and I'll put a little bit of butter, and I'll put my eggs in there and let them gradually cook instead of having it super hot and they're racing to cook. So I'm looking at it now, and I can see there's still a few specks of water, but it's all starting to dry up. Once that last speck of water is gone and dried up, as it is right now, I'll take me a little piece of butter, and I'll drop it in there. And you see how it's melting? It's not scalding, it's not turning brown, it's melting nice and light. And you'll know if it's too hot because you put that butter in there and it'll just turn brown because the butter's burning. I'll go ahead and pour my eggs in there. Pour the eggs in there. The eggs will slowly cook. They're not scalding. So, that being said, what you'll do from there is just take your spatula and constantly cook and turn them. Give them a little swirl, and just make sure you keep them moving. Now, could you imagine if I had this on high, seeing as to how fast and how well these are cooking at this temperature? And this will have some nice scrambled, soft eggs. They won't be hard scrambled and dry. I know some people like their eggs hard scrambled, but even if you do, that doesn't mean you have to cook them at a rate of speed that's insane. And once you see them like this, where they're at where you want them, the pan is gonna stay hot. You can take them away from the heat and just continue to flip them around until they're done and to your liking. Some people like them runnier, and we're at the end of the process with our grits. So what we'll do is I'll take some butter, put a little bit of butter in those. Actually, a good bit of butter in those. Butter and grits is what goes together. Give it a nice little stir. Oh yeah. A little bit of salt, pepper, not too much. I like pepper, so I might do too much. But a little bit of salt. We'll get some salt from that cheese too. And grits get nice and hot, but from there we'll just take this cheese. We'll put some cheese over in there. And that's how you do cheese grits. So now we got everything done. We got our eggs here, we got our grits here, our cheese grits, we got our steak, and we're gonna be going over a little bit of plating. I'm gonna show you how to plate it, how to make it look good, give you that flair that you're looking for. Oh, it's cut real nice. Get you guys to get a look in there. It's a nice little medium. Look at there, nice and juicy, not overcooked, not undercooked. Plate this little piece here. Go ahead and take our cheese grits. Oh, I love cheese grits. We'll put these over here on this corner. You can always have a napkin or a towel to wipe and then clean up whatever you have. Next we'll take our eggs and we'll just put those bad boys right over in there. So from here, take the little green onion we got. See how it's like pretty bland looking. And we'll give it some color. Drop the green onions up in there. Give it a little something, you know? A little something, something. Then we'll take these onions. I love onions. Then take some of these peppers, hands are clean. Get some of these colors in here. Get some of that red popping. Keep a little parsley on hand. It's always nice, you know. Take a little parsley. Just throw some of that on there and clean some of these spots up. Voila. However you want. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that bell notification. Leave some comments below. I will be posting videos every week, at least trying to. So you guys leave some comments and let me know what you'd like to see from me. Until next time.
I've been putting work in, I put in that work. I got some
Today we're going to be going over temperature control. Keyword, control. Control. And the famous words of Russell Simmons. Thank you for coming out. God bless you. Good night. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button below. Make sure you hit that bell button. The bell button.